Hello and welcome back to another Kaldheim Limited video. Today we are talking about the 13 worst cards in Kaldheim Limited. As always, please click like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video and would like to support the channel. Let's get into it. This video is for you if you're thinking about getting into draft, or if you've just started learning how to draft and you're a little bit unsure when you're looking at the packs. What am I supposed to be taking? What are the good cards? What are the bad cards? In every set, there are a handful of cards that you should literally never put in your deck. These might be good in Constructed, they might be good in Standard or Modern or maybe Commander or something like that, but not in Draft, so don't get fooled. These are in no particular order. Some might be more obvious than others. Let's check it out. Number 1, Revitalize. This is 1 and a white for the instant that says you gain 3 life and draw a card. In Kaldheim, there are no synergies having to do with gaining life or drawing extra cards, as there were in a set like M21, for example. Spending 2 mana just to gain 3 life and draw a card is generally not worth it. As a baseline in Limited, the cards in your deck should either be creatures, remove creatures, draw you extra cards, or give you some kind of an effect that's equivalent to the above 3. Number 2, a null. It's a single blue for the instant that says counter target artifact or enchantment spell. Being able to remove artifacts and enchantments can be useful, but usually you want that attached to another useful effect, such as Masked Vandal or Broken Wings. Cards that only destroy artifacts or enchantments are generally referred to as being too narrow. On top of that, a null only works at the time your opponent casts their artifact or enchantment spell, requiring you to have a null in your hand at that moment and have the blue mana available to cast it. With something like Broken Wings, you could have it when they cast their spell, or you could draw it later and it'll still be good. Number 3, Dogged Pursuit. This is 3 and a black for the enchantment that says at the beginning of your end step, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. Think of this as a 4 mana, 1/1 unblockable creature that only attacks, except you can't put equipment on it or use a pump spell on it. It's just too expensive for too minor of an effect. Number 4, Wither Crown. This is 1 and a black for the aura that enchants a creature. It says enchanted creature has base power 0 and has, at the beginning of your upkeep, you lose 1 life unless you sacrifice this creature. So that means the creature could still block, it could still use its abilities, such as Boast on a card like Tuskeri Firewalker. It can actually still attack, even though it's got 0 power. It could still be sacrificed to an effect like Village Rites. Or imagine you cast a card like Turgrid's Shadow after already putting Wither Crown on one of your opponent's creatures. Yikes. The creature could still have its power boosted, so something like Mistwalker that can pump itself, or something like Spirit of the Alderguard that gets its power boosted by how many snow permanents you have. Or maybe your opponent's got an equipment to put on it, or maybe they've got a pump spell to put on it. There are just too many different factors that make Wither Crown not worth it. Number 5, Open the Omen Paths. This is 2 and a red for an instant that says choose 1, add 2 mana of one color and 2 mana of another color, only spending that on creatures or enchantments, or creatures you control get +1/+0 until end of turn. This one is hopefully pretty obvious. Spending 3 mana to get 4 mana is not worth it, and spending 3 mana to give your team +1/+0 is not worth it. Try Warhorn Blast instead. Number 6, Smashing Success. This is 3 and a red for an instant that says destroy target artifact or land, and if you destroyed an artifact, you get a treasure token. Again, going back to a null, this is just too narrow of an effect, and this one costs 4 mana instead of 1. These types of cards can be good if there are a lot of really good artifact creatures in the set, but that's not the case in Kaldheim. Number 7, Tibolts Trickery, and I'm going to have to read this one. This is 1 and a red for the instant. It says counter target spell, choose 1, 2, or 3 at random. Its controller mills that many cards, then exiles cards from the top of their library until they exile a non-land card with a different name than that spell. That spell being the spell that you countered. They may cast that card without paying its mana cost, then they put the exiled cards on the bottom of their library in a random order. So this is your red card in the set that's just too complex to even read, and they're never good anyways. But seriously, your opponent gets a replacement spell for whatever you countered, and in Limited, cards are much closer to each other in power level than in Constructed, so you countering their 4/4 and them flipping up a 3/3 is pretty close to the same as you just having done nothing. Number 8, Vault Robber. This is 1 and a red for a 1/3 Dwarf Rogue. Has the activated ability 1 and tap, exile a creature card from your graveyard to create a treasure token. So the activated ability here is really, really hard to set up, and it's a fairly minor effect. Treasures can be pretty good at fixing your mana, allowing you to splash cards of other colors, but in this case, you can't count on being able to activate this, as you might not have a creature in your graveyard at the time that you need the treasure to cast your spell of another color. Aside from that, a 2-mana 1/3 is not really that great of a creature, and there are just enough better creatures in the set that you should never have to put Vault Robber in your deck. Number 9, Funeral Longboat. This is 2 mana for a 3/3 artifact vehicle with vigilance and crew 1, meaning you have to tap one of your creatures with power 1 or greater in order for this card to become a creature. When you crew this, think of it like you're upgrading your creature into a 3/3 vigilance. 3/3 vigilance is not an upgrade for most creatures. If it is, you should be playing better creatures. Crewing this is essentially like spending 2 cards to get 1 card's worth of a creature. Play literally any other 2 or 3 cost creature in your colors over this, even Vault Robber. Number 10, Pyre of Heroes, and I gotta read this one again. This is 2 mana for an artifact, and it has the ability, pay 2 mana, tap it, sacrifice a creature, search your library for a creature card that shares a creature type with the sacrificed creature and has a converted mana cost equal to 1 plus that creature's converted mana cost. Put it onto the battlefield, shuffle your library, and you can only do this at sorcery speed. So the problem with a card like this is that in Limited, generally there are not enough uniquely powerful creatures that you want to go searching them up and spending mana and cards to do so. So you would have to have a uniquely powerful creature in your deck, and you would have to have this in play at the right time, and you would have to have the time and mana to activate it, and you would have to have a creature in play that you're willing to sacrifice, and that creature would have to be 1 cost less than the creature you want to search for, and it would have to share a creature type with that creature. Have I said enough yet? This card is not good. Number 11, Weathered Runestone. This is 2 mana for the artifact that says non-land permanent cards in graveyards and libraries can't enter the battlefield, and players can't cast spells from graveyards or libraries. So this really only interacts with cards that are looking to put creatures into play from the graveyard, such as Return Upon the Tide, or Port of Carful, or Carter's Vicious Return. This is not a very common effect, although there are a few cards that do it, and dedicating an entire slot in your deck to preventing this from happening is usually not worth it. There's a really good chance that your opponents just aren't even going to have these cards in their decks at all. Or if they do, they might not draw them, and you might draw this, and therefore you've got a card that's doing nothing. Just play any creature instead. Number 12, Faceless Haven. This is a snow land that taps for colorless mana and has the activated ability, Snow, Snow, Snow. Faceless Haven becomes a 4/3 creature with vigilance that's all creature types until end of turn. So this is the type of card that looks pretty good and might even be pretty good and constructed, but I think is really, really dangerous to include in your deck in Limited. Lands that don't tap for colored mana are really bad for your mana base in Draft. Just trust me, or go read a Frank Karsten article. Triple Snow is really, really hard to assemble, especially now more than ever with the Snow deck being very contested as people know it's really good. And there are a lot of 3/2 creatures in the format that can block this or just attack through it. You're honestly better off just playing a basic land in your colors than playing this card. And finally, number 13, Tyrite Sanctum. And I'm going to have to read this one again. This is a colorless land, taps for only colorless mana, and has the activated ability 2 and tap. Target legendary creature becomes a god in addition to its other types. Put a +1/+1 counter on it. And has 4 and tap. Sacrifice it to put an indestructible counter on target god. Did I mention that colorless lands are bad? And you have to have a legendary creature and the time and mana to use it. No thanks. Pick it up if you want the gems, but don't put it in your deck. I hope you enjoyed this video about the 13 worst cards in Kaldheim Limited. Hopefully this will help you not make mistakes while you're drafting. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Did I get something wrong? Is there another card that should be on this list? Let me know. You can find me streaming on Twitch at twitch.tv/alromusic. Thank you as always for watching. Bye for now.